Well, hey, good Tuesday evening to everybody, and it is great to be with you guys. Another another episode of Walking in Spirit Truth, where we're going through the Book of Jubilees, and we're taking it chapter by chapter, not just so that we can fill our heads with knowledge and just which we will get knowledge along the way, but that we can experience this journey that Moshe had on the mountain. Oh no. All right, so for some reason my camera just cut out and I have no idea why. Yeah, yeah, that's pretty interesting. Okay, so I'm in audio only right now, and I'm gonna figure this out. So y'all just stick with me as I go to look to see what happened because the camera shows on and it just completely just scrambled on me. Yep. Okay, we're working. We're waiting. We're waiting for an alternative solution here. And it's not working. So y'all just bear with me. I'm going to step out of the studio. I'll be right back. Let me put some music on while I step out of here, and we'll be right back. Okay, we're back again, and thank you for bearing with me. I thought I'd just start the whole intro all over again since just got it started and everything crashed. So I'm back again, and we're going to jump into the study today. We've been going through the Book of Jubilees, like I said, and it's been an adventure. It's not about studying so much as what it's saying, but we are as much as what is it this adventure that's being spoken to Moses about while he's on the mountain that they're telling us about. And because in this is like this adventure, it's like an adventure within an adventure. Like Moses is on the Exodus and he's gone up the mountain, he's in the presence of Yahweh, and now he's on this adventure within the adventure, going through all these different things, which is a download of a tremendous event. So we left off last week in chapter 4. I'm using the Sefer version. So your version, the chapters might be off a little bit, the verses might be off a little bit, but maybe you can find it as I read along, because we left off in the Sefer version, chapter 4, verse 20, and we were talking about Enoch, and it was quite interesting, and we're going to jump into that. So, if you're new here and you haven't been part of Walking in Spirit of Truth before, my name's John Craig, and my wife Sandi and I pastor Life of Worship Ministries in Amarillo, Texas. And so we do a couple different shows here on the Lamb Network. And like Monday morning, Let Us Reason Together. We do the War Room prayer room on Monday mornings. We have Walking in Spirit of Truth. There's another one that's in the works that you'll just have to stay tuned for. And then, of course, on Shabbat, on our own Life of Worship Ministries YouTube channel, you can join us for the Torah portion at noon on Shabbat. That's Central Time. And we go for a couple hours on that, take an hour break, and then in between, and then at 3 p.m., we have our encounter service where we have a time of praise worship ministries, followed by a second stream for a message. And we just hope that you would come and join us and be part of that. And we had learned this last week that the Wi-Fi at the hotel that we were at this last week was not quite as good as the week before. So we're going to go back to the hotel from the week before. We just couldn't go there last week because they were already booked, but we've got the rest of the year booked out at this at the original hotel, and we want you to be part of it and share in this wonderful experience that we're having at Life of Worship Ministries, which is reaching beyond just these city limits, but going across the nation and across the continent, so and other parts of the world. And yeah, if you guys that joined us on Shabbat, let us know which ones you preferred. Did you prefer in terms of the look and the audio and all that sort of stuff? Well, we're working out audio issues because it's a whole nother different setup, and that's just a challenge. But what did you think? What did it look like? Do you like last week on Shabbat, or did you like the prior week for Shabbat? The prior week, we had the two pictures that were in the background, and then however, this past week it was just a blank wall behind us, behind where the worship team was. So give us your thoughts and what you think about it. All right, so Life of Worship Ministries, if you want to join together with us and partner with us, you can several different ways. Be a prayer partner with us. You can also, which we would love, let us know that you're praying for us, and we certainly want people to be standing in the gap because of it's just challenging. Life is challenging, and we certainly can use a prayer team that will stand with us through those the day and the hour that we're living in. Then also you can be a financial partner with us. You can go to Life of Worship Amarillo.org, and you can click on the donate button, and you can sign up for a one-time contribution, or you could sign up for just a regular subscription type of contribution, and it'll just automatically do withdrawals if you set it up that way. Either way is wonderful, and we certainly appreciate that. And yes, we were in different hotels. So last week we were in one, and then the prior week we were at a different one. And so and then also you can tell the difference. So if you go back and look at our feed on Life of Worship Ministries for the past 2 weeks, you can see that one, when we're doing our streaming, one has 2 pictures on the wall behind us, and that is the first hotel, and it has different lighting. It has kind of different colors. And then this last week was more whitish, and it had a blank wall. There were no pictures on the wall or anything like that. Okay, that's it for now. Let's jump in the book of Jubilees. And of course, we had left off in chapter 4, verse 20, talking about Enoch. And where in chapter 16, what we have is kind of reviewing just a little bit, is that in the 11th Jubilee, Jared took to himself a woman, and her name was Baraka, the daughter of Rasuyal, uh, a daughter of his father's brother, in the 4th week of this Jubilee. And she bore him a son in the 5th week, in the 4th year of the Jubilee. And he called his name Enoch. In verse 17, he was the first among men that was born on earth who learned writing and knowledge and wisdom, and who wrote down the signs of heaven according to the order of the months in a sefer. And it goes on talking about the seasons, and we just kind of basically introduced Enoch. And of course, we did that whole study on the book of Enoch, but this is interesting as well in verse 20 where we left off, and we're going to pick right back up with, is that it says in the 12th Jubilee, in the 7th week thereof, he took to himself a woman, and her name was Edna, the daughter of Danel, the daughter of his father's brother. And in the 6th year in this week, she bore him a son, and he called his name Methuselah. Okay, so where was that over in the book of Enoch? Well, I just thought I'd share with you when he was talking to his son, uh, Methuselah, and he was saying, "Look, when I married your mother Edna." What? Yeah, he was telling the story. So here we have a blending between Enoch and a blending with the book of Jubilees, where it says it over in chapter 84 of Enoch. It says, "After this, I saw another dream and explained it all to you, my son Hanok. My son Hanok arose and said to his son Methuselah, to you, my son, will I speak. Hear my word and incline your ear to the visionary dream of your father. Before I married your mother Edna, I saw a vision on my bed." And it goes on from there. So that's the first time that I can remember where he actually uh, says the name of his wife, which was Edna. And of course, I every time he refers to Methuselah's mother, I would always throw in Edna. That's her name, Edna. I like it. I like that fact that in the book of Jubilees and also in the book of Enoch, how these shall we say the patriarchs of our faith that go pre-Abraham, that they give the names. Like, what was Noah's wife's name? Noah. What was his wife's name? What was Shem's wife's name? We don't know their names, but yet here in these books we just get that little snippet of information, and that kind of tells us a little bit about, hey, these are real people. And I mean, these aren't just these superhuman type of famous people of our history, the history of Earth and the family of Earth, but they're real everyday people, and they had everyday experiences, and that was very natural, just like your experience is my experience, other than the times are different. But these are people that are working through life, and so I just thought it was cool. That's my little commentary on chapter 4, verse 20 in the book of Jubilees. So here, yeah, he gets together with Edna, and Enoch and Edna have a son. His name is Methuselah, and he was moreover with the angels of Elohim these 6 jubilees of years, and they showed him everything which is on earth and in the heavens, the rule of the sun, and he wrote down everything. And I thought that was really interesting too, because this kind of blends back over the book of Enoch, because first off, it says 6 jubilees of years that he was with the angels. It's 300 years, guys. 300 years Enoch was with the angels, and he's learning, and they're telling him everything. And of course, they credit Enoch with being the first one to devise a written language. So I thought that was extremely interesting, because when he's talking with his son Methuselah, that he is recounting some of the things that Yeah, it's like in chapter 78 of Enoch, chapter 78 of Enoch, where it says, "And now my son Methuselah, I have shown you everything, and every ordinance of the stars of heaven is finished. He showed me every ordinance respecting these, which is at all times and in all seasons, under every influence, in all years at their arrival, under the rule of each, during every month and every week. Also the decrease of the moon and effect of the sixth gate." I mean, it goes on from there, but he's relaying the all of this celestial knowledge, this the counting of the times and the seasons, and he's passing that down to his son Methuselah, and that was in chapter 78 of Jubilees. So we see like this connection what we just read there, and where it says, and he was moreover with the angels of Elohim these 6 jubilees of years, and they showed him everything which is on earth and in the heavens, the rule of the sun, and he wrote down everything. So the rule of the sun, what is it about the rule of the sun, like where it rises, where it falls, and during the different seasons of the year, as the sun would arise and fall, and you would be able to count the days, and ultimately that would give us a week, and then count the months, and then which would lead us to counting of the year. So this was very interesting as we see a little relationship between the two. And verse 22, it says, "And he testified to the watchers who had sinned with the daughters of men, for these had begun to unite themselves so as to be defiled with the daughters of men, and Hanok testified against them all." So, uh, 70 chapter, yeah, it was chapter 78 of Enoch. Yes, thank you, Terry, for clarifying that. And because we're only in chapter 4 of Jubilees right now, so if I said 78 of Jubilees, forgive me. But so we're back in chapter 4 of Jubilees, verse 22. So Hanok now is also a witness against the watchers. He's recording exactly what the watchers were doing. Remember the 200 angels that came down and united themselves with the daughters of men? And so Hanok testified against them all in verse 23, and it says, "And he was taken from amongst the children of men, and we conducted him into the Garden of Eden in majesty and honor. And behold, there he writes down the condemnation and judgments of the world and all the wickedness of the children of men." Okay, so now in verse 23, I think that's worth marking. I think that's worth, notating, where because we've always talked about Enoch. Enoch was no more. I mean, we see that within the scriptures that Enoch was no more. Why? Because he was with Elohim. And so in verse 23, we have that connection where it says, "And we conducted him." Now remember, this is the first person, plural, as Elohim is speaking to Moses on the mountain. So that's why it says, "And we conducted him into the Garden of Eden in majesty and honor. And behold, there he writes down the condemnation and judgment of the world and all the wickedness of the children of men." So he was sequestered away by Elohim to where? The Garden of Eden. But wait a minute, I thought the Garden of Eden was like locked up or destroyed. And here, according to the book of Jubilees, according to the account given to Moses, is that Enoch was considered righteous, and because he was considered righteous, he was able to go into the Garden of Eden. It's kind of like still this sanctuary that was on earth, just like we would consider the tabernacle or the temple as the sanctuary, where we have the imagery of the garden from the Holy of Holies to the holy place, and then the inner courts and the outer courts give us all the imagery of the garden, uh, and yet it's not, but it's the place that's the closest place on earth where man would walk with Yah, and of course, only and limited to the high priest. Isn't it interesting that Enoch is taken to the Garden of Eden? Who gets to go to the Garden of Eden, or who gets to go to the Holy of Holies? That would be the high priest. So, what type of position would we see? What type of authority would Enoch hold? And considering that he's writing down the condemnation and the judgment of the world, that he would be in a position as in operating as high priest. I think that's always interesting. I think that would be as we kind of reflect that within, you know, this meaning of the words implicates who Enoch was, and that how Yahweh would see him. And verse 24 says, and on the account of it, Elohim brought the waters of the flood upon all the land of Eden. And there he was set as a sign that he should testify against all the children of men, that he should recount all the deeds of the generations until the day of condemnation. Now, I think there's twofold. So, and okay, all right. So, oh, I get it. Okay, just a little pause there. Lou, you're in Arizona. You didn't have a time change. We did. We had to fall back, so we just had a time change. So yeah, it's been 8 o'clock, but yeah, we lost our daylight savings time, and that's why it's different for you, because you guys in Arizona, you don't have to deal with, all of that stuff. Okay, just a little pause. I was wondering what was going on. But Linda, you've got that clarified. But I think it's the time we had a time change and losing over there in Arizona. All right, back to chapter 24. So it says, on the account of Elohim, on account of it, Elohim brought the waters of the flood, because why Enoch was testifying against not just the watchers, but he is also testifying uh, against mankind on the earth. So when we have that, because he's talking about the wickedness and all the wickedness of the children of men. So the floodwaters came. But I think it's a twofold discussion here. I think it's talking about, one, he's talking about the flood, which was the judgment upon the earth by which Noah and his family was preserved. But I think there's also, because when it comes to Enoch, and after going through the book of Enoch, is that we see this testimony and this witness and this download and this revelation that's given to Enoch that would speak about a time of judgment coming upon the earth at the time of Noah. But but there is strong inference, but based on a number of different things that we discussed about in the book of Enoch, that it was also speaking about an end time judgment, that at the time of the conclusion of the number of jubilees, which would be 120, that there would once again be another judgment upon the earth, but it would not come as a flood of water, but it would come as another form. And then ultimately we have the great white throne judgment, and the final separation of between the righteous and the wicked, and that would include the judgment of the angels and the watchers. So I think that we see this. I can't help but to think about this. All right, so we're in chapter 4, verse 24, and I can't help but to think about about the watchers, because we'll probably get into it a little bit more after this. But the watchers, they were gathered together, right? And they were chained. They were bound together and then placed in a prison inside the earth, and they would be held until the final judgment. Isn't that really interesting? Uh, they wouldn't be released. They just have been having to sit there, jubilee after jubilee after jubilee after jubilee, and never ever to be brought out from that place of condemnation. A prison sentence that knows no end until final judgment has been placed upon them. And you think about the severity of the crime that they committed that would imprison them for that long a period of time. And we're so, our thought process barely even gets us thinking into eternity before our mind is completely blown. It's because we're so temporal, and we think about how long those and the sentence that was passed against them, and this judgment and this condemnation. And then you think about, what about the wicked on earth? What about the wicked that never turned to Yeshua the Messiah, and the type of condemnation that they will receive, and how it is eternity? And I mean, Think about it. What would it be like to be chained in a cold, damp, dark dungeon without light for tens of thousands of years? I mean, just it's just my, here, of course, 120 jubilees. We're looking at that seven millennial time frame, but when you're looking at it in terms of, wow, that's a really long time. Those watchers are still bound down there. They're still, I mean, the contemporary language that is given to us here in the book of Jubilees still speaks to us, and in the book of Enoch, it still speaks today. Now, it's that's why we see this amazing parallel, or these amazing the parallelism that goes along with the scriptures, is that it is still a word that speaks to us today, because those watchers, they just didn't vanish or go away, or die off, or and return to dust like our bodies do. But no, they're still imprisoned in an eternal body that will receive the final judgment and be cast into the lake of fire. I I don't know if you've ever framed it that way, but I'm looking at it that way, as we're talking about right now, is that, wow, in our contemporary setting, they are still imprisoned in the earth in chains. Wow. Okay. So the other thing here is for it says for in verse 24, for there he was set as a sign that he would testify against all the children of men, that he should recount all the deeds of the generations until the day of condemnation. Which tells me something else that was going on with Enoch, is that he was a historian, actually keeping up with all of the families of men up to this point in time. And I would have to say that's a lot of that's a lot of writing, because he was documenting the wickedness of every family upon the earth. The way it looks like to me, recount all the deeds. It says all the deeds of the generations, plural, until the day of condemnation. And he burnt the incense of the sanctuary, even sweet spices acceptable before Yahweh on the mount. For Yahweh has 4 places on the earth: the Garden of Eden, and the Mount of the East, and this mountain on which you are on this day, Mount Sinai, and Mount Zion, which will be sanctified in the new creation, for a sanctification of the earth. Through it will the earth be sanctified from all its guilt and its uncleanness through the generations of the world. Now, all right, wait a minute. Whoa, just hold your horses here. He says, for Yahweh has 4 places on the earth. Now remember, this is Elohim speaking to Moses on the mountain, and he's saying, where it says that, and Moses burnt the incense of the sanctuary, even sweet spices acceptable before Yahweh on the mount. Because when you think about on the mount, one of the first places we should think of is Mount Sinai. For Yahweh has 4 places on the earth: the Garden of Eden. Well, where is that? I mean, was it destroyed? Or is the Garden of Eden still around, but it's interdimensional? It's like it's being held behind a dimensional wall, so that man will never find it, but it's actually still on the earth. Did you ever think about that? Because if it's being guarded by the cherubim, and it's got a gate to it, essentially, because the cherubim is at the gate with a flaming sword, moving back and forth. That you would think, well, was it destroyed in the flood? Well, they're telling us no, it was not destroyed, as if it has this protective bubble around it, and whatever type of protection around the garden, so it's never no one can ever go into it or find it. It just seems to me, it's like a science fiction movie. It's like, well, you look out over across the field, and in the middle of the field is where it's at, but you can't see it. because you're just seeing what's on the other side of that field, as if it's invisible. And yet, if we had eyes of the spirits and we could see interdimensionally, if we were brought to the place of the locale, the location where it's located, maybe, if Yahweh removed the veil, we would actually see this garden. And because he's talking about the 4 places on earth, the Garden of Eden, the Mount of the East. Now, that is that question. I need to find out what is the Mount of the East, and this mountain on which you are this day, Mount Sinai, and Mount Zion, which will be sanctified in the new creation for a sanctification of the earth. Through it will the earth be sanctified from all its guilt and its uncleanness throughout the generations of the world. So Mount Zion is where, we think about Mount Zion, where in Jerusalem, where the temple was, and that at some point in time in the future, when you think about when the heavenly Jerusalem comes down, it will be that place that's going to sanctify the new creation for the sanctification of the earth. So we think about that the earth sanctified because of Mount Zion. Through it all the earth be sanctified from all its guilt and its uncleanness through the generations of the world. So, and in the 14th, I mean, that's really powerful. You think about, why is Mount Zion, why is Jerusalem the number one place that's being fought over of all the locales of all the earth? I mean, are people fighting over Mount Sinai today? No. They would be fighting over the garden if anybody knew where it was at. And this mountain in the east, what is that mountain in the east? I still want to know what it is. Okay. But the most fought over place, in other words, the enemy knows that Mount Zion has significant prophetic meaning. And therefore, if he can somehow cause the prophecies not to be fulfilled by trying to even destroy the mountain, then the prophecy couldn't be fulfilled. Then why not bring all war against Jerusalem, where Jerusalem would be completely annihilated? Of course, we don't see that within scriptures. Jerusalem's never annihilated. And but we see cities like in Syria, the capital of Syria, Damascus. Damascus is destroyed. So, and so many other cities have been destroyed over the course of time. Babylon was destroyed. And what type, who lives in Babylon today? And we're not talking about the region of Babylon, talking about the city of Babylon. Nobody lives there. It's a haunt of jackals and owls. So going on in verse 27, and in the 14th Jubilee, Methuselah took unto himself a woman, Edna, the daughter of Atzriel, the daughter of the father's brother, in the 3rd week, the first year of this week, and he begat a son and called his name Lamech. Hey, wait a minute. So now Methuselah also marries a woman whose name is Edna. What? Okay. All right. Just saying. Oh, and okay. I didn't see that one coming. All right. So anyway, we got Methuselah. Methuselah took on himself a woman, Edna, the daughter of Atrial. Of course, that's a different daughter, because the Edna was the other Edna, which is Hanok, Enoch's wife, was the daughter of Danel. So got to keep these generations separated. You got to know who's married to whom, right? It's about our family tree. We got to know about our family tree. We got to keep up with them. Okay. In the 3rd week, in the 1st year of this week, and he begat a son and called his name Lamech. So he married Edna, the daughter of Atriel, the daughter of his father's brother. So he married his cousin. In the 3rd week, in the 1st year of this week, and he begat a son and called his name Lamech. And in the 15th Jubilee, in the 3rd week, Lamech took himself a woman, and her name was Betanos. Wait a minute. Oh, that was his son. Lamech, yeah, he got married too. So, and he married Betanos, the daughter of Barakiel. there is Barakiel, the daughter of his father's brother. And okay, so another, he married his cousin. And in this week, she bore him a son, and he called his name Noah, saying, "This one will comfort me for my trouble and all my work, and for the ground which Yahweh has cursed." Woo! Oh, yeah. I mean, they're talking about feeling the pain of Adam, because they're having to plow a ground that was cursed, and it would be from the sweat of the brow that they bring forth fruit from the earth. And yeah, no one was immune from that curse. Everybody today is not immune from that curse. It takes work and and hard work. I mean, just to that we can live everyday life. That's why one of the things that we have to get a grasp on is that we cannot find our significance in how much money we have in the bank account, because we feel like if we tie our significance to the bank account, then and there's not enough money in the account that we think that we need or not, then we will never feel like we measure up to the type of person that we need to be. And yet, we have innately inside of us, I would say, as a husband, as a father, is that I feel an intense duty to make sure that all the needs of my family are taken care of, but not just the needs, that even if they have a desire for something, that I can provide for it. And therefore, when I see, wow, man, the bank account's running short and I can't do that, then if I tie myself to the amounts that's in that bank account, uh, then I'm going to have a I will not have Yahweh's view of who I am. And that also means for somebody that has an abundance in there, they're blessed and they've got a huge bank account. And they've always had more than enough, and they can spend whatever they want to spend on everything. And yet that is not their significance. There's our significance of who we are is in Yeshua, and nothing more, nothing less. That's who we need to. That's our identity. That's the people we are, and therefore we see ourselves as royal priesthood, serving the Most High, the High Priest and King of the universe. And unless we see ourselves in that way, then and we feel like we're lacking or maybe very comfortable, we may miss out on the opportunities of fulfilling the purposes for which Yahweh has called us. We have to be very, very careful and recognize that personal significance and identity and identification to our King has to be kept in order and cannot be influenced by our circumstances. Because the enemy is going to use our circumstances, because our circumstances can swing like a pendulum back and forth, however it is, it's going to and make it tough for us. So there's a little bit of preaching, but maybe some preaching, but a little bit of pastoral care as well, by identifying and understanding who we are in our identity in Messiah. Okay, so, and in the 15th Jubilee, in the third week, Lamech took himself a woman, and her name was Betnos. We covered that. And they had a son, and his name is Noach. This one will comfort me for my trouble and all my work, and for the ground which Yahweh has cursed. And at the close of the 19th Jubilee, on the 7th week, in the 6th year thereof, Adam died. Wow. Okay, the 19th Jubilee, in the 7th week, in the 6th year, in the 7th week of the 6th year. Okay, hold on. We got to calculate this out. Okay, right? Okay, hold on. We're going to look at this. Let's look at this. And how many Jubilees was it? It was 19. So 19 times 50. Anybody got that in there? 950. And then plus in the seventh week, so that'd be 7 times 7 years. So that's plus 49. And in the 6th year, so plus 6 equals 1005. 1005 years Adam died. So or you might say, in the year 1005 from the garden, Adam died. or shall we? Yeah, from the time that he became a living nefesh, in Genesis chapter 2, 1,005 years he died, and so then we have the fulfillment of what what Yahweh said to him. Said, anybody that eats the fruit that's in the middle of the garden from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil shall surely die, and he did die. He lived a long time, probably a long time. I mean, a long time of battling those memories, a long time of remorse, lamentation, and trying to make the very best and be an example to his family. Because what do you do when you have your family? What's the what's a phrase that's very common, like when you're a team, and your team is battling through a series to work its way to the top, and you just had a big defeat, and what's the coach always say? Chin up. You have a struggle in the in whatever environment that you're working through, and it's like, oh, this is hard. And what is the supervisor, the team leader, the boss, the manager want to do? He comes into the group, say, hey, we just had this defeat, or we didn't get the sale, or whatever, but chins up. We're going to get through it. We're going to get the next one. Adam, don't you think that Adam, as the patriarch, would be saying that to all of his family? It's very important. I mean, 1,005 years, lots going on. But you see how uh, all of the different ages overlap in timeline together, as these very significant figures are watched. The eighth, like Noah being the eighth from Adam, in terms of the Melchizedek priesthood that's being passed on down, the one that we recognize Yeshua coming from that lineage. So it says Adam died, and all his sons buried him in the land of his creation. And it's kind of sad. I mean, they bring it out, but it's interesting to me that this is part of the commentary, is that Moses is being told, this is where you've come from, and this is how things evolved all the way, through up to the time of the flood. And going on, it says, and he was the first to be buried in the earth. He was the first to be buried in the earth. The first to be born, the first to be buried. But wait a minute. Remember, it says first to be buried in the earth. Now, there, or maybe what happened is, if someone died, or were people being born and they just continue to live? What about unfortunate circumstances when someone dies, accidental death, and that type of thing? Did they not bury them, or did they burn the bodies, or did they just put it on a boat and send it out like the Vikings into the water, and then ignite the boat on fire, or what? I don't know. It makes me wonder. But Adam was the first to be buried in the earth. And we think about Abraham, and when he purchases the cave, for which he would bury Sarai. And it was supposed to be, according to according to the I've got to be careful, the sages, let's just say, according to the sages, that was the tomb by which Adam and Eve were buried. So anyway, that's another whole nother line of discussion, which we've had during our Torah portions before, by the way. And it says, and he lacked 70 years of 1,000 years. Wait a minute, I came up with 1,005, but it says so that means he only lived 930 years. But why did it say that? I must not have calculated it correctly. That's a long time, almost 1,000 years. All right, how are we doing on time? Still have time. Okay. And you lack 70 years of 1,000 years, for 1,000 years are as one day in the testimony of the heavens, and therefore, as it written concerning the tree of the knowledge on the day that ye eat thereof, ye shall die. For this reason, he did not complete the years of his day, for he died during it. There you go. Kaboom. That's where we get that nice little nugget. A day is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is a day. And everybody just thought that was just New Testament wisdom and knowledge and understanding. And guess what? No, it just goes back. All right, it goes back here. So this, if you ever wondered, it's in Jubilees chapter 4, and that was verse 30, that that in the day that you eat of the fruit, you shall die. So Yahweh wasn't lying. It's not like a lot of mornings and evenings and overnights and daytimes and all that he lived through for 930 years. It's just that Yahweh didn't lie, because a day is 1,000 years, 1,000 years is a day. Ah, wow. Okay. I love it. I like this thing because it's revealing things to us. It helps us get an understanding and a framework by by which we can judge the scriptures by, or be able to say, "Oh yeah, we read that in Jubilees, and now I understand how this actually works within scripture and what he's talking about." Yeah, I like that. So here we go. Um, So for 1,000 years are as one day in the testimony of the heavens, and therefore was it written concerning the tree of knowledge. On the day that you eat thereof, you shall die. I'm marking that because I want to see that. I'm look it up for reference. So because this is going to be Genesis chapter 3, Genesis chapter 2. I'm going to put a little footnote there. Okay, for this reason, he did not complete the years of this day, for he died during it. At the close of this Jubilee, Cain was killed after him in the same year. For his house fell upon him, and he died in the midst of the house, and he was killed by its stones. For with a stone he had killed Abel, Havel, and by a stone was he killed in righteous judgment. Wow, what goes around comes around. Wait a minute. Isn't that what? Yeah, because we call it the law of reciprocity. Okay, hold on. I gotta pull that out. All right, and here's it. I'm gonna pull out my other, because I'm gonna look over in the book of Galatians. That's where it's pointing me to. Well, that's not, but I just remember. And where we see in the book of Galatians, chapter 6, and um, there we go. Chapter 6, verse 7. Do not be deceived. Yah is not mocked. For whatever a man sows, this he will also reap. Hmm. For the one who sows to his own flesh shall from the flesh reap corruption, but the one who sows to the Spirit shall from the Spirit reap eternal life. And let us not lose heart in doing good, for in due time we will reap if we do not grow weary. Isn't that something that we do? I mean, isn't it so important that we encourage ourselves with those words? But nevertheless, that's the law of reciprocity. Galatians chapter 6, verse 7. Do not be deceived. Yah is not mocked, for whatever a man sows, this he will also reap. And there we go. That's the law of reciprocity. And as it was for Cain, and I'm going to put Genesis chapter 6, verse 7, the law of reciprocity. Wow, isn't that interesting? So it gives us another hint that he killed Abel with a stone. And so, how would his house fall in on him? Would it be like an earthquake? I was looking at some of the pictures of Afghanistan's had a couple really severe earthquakes here recently. One was just this week, and then it wasn't not too long ago there was one. And their houses are made of stones and you know uh, bricks and that type of thing. And so when there's an earthquake, the house just falls and crumbles in on itself, and it kills the inhabitants inside. And I'm thinking maybe it was an earthquake. He killed Havel by a stone. Was he killed in righteous judgment? Wow. Wow. Some might say, well, is that like cosmic humor, or does Yahweh have a sense of humor here? Well, I think I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't say that. Would you say that? I don't think Yahweh has that type of, that's not like humor. That's not humor to me. It's very sad. That saddens me. For this reason, it was ordained on the heavenly tablets with the instrument with which a man kills his neighbor, with the same shall he be killed. After the manner that he wounded him, in like manner shall they deal with him. Ooh, what would happen? Oh my goodness, what would happen to our justice system if if you know, instead of being sentenced to so many years in prison, but that a crime is committed and therefore, let's say someone uh, assaults somebody and punches them in the face, well, then the proper judgment would be that there would be the same like kind hit in the face, back, and then it's over and done with. You know, I don't know. I mean, I think justice. We probably would have. I think we would. I think we would have less crime. Let's put it that way. Less crime on the streets if we had justice like that. Why don't we tell me what you think? You know, right, Tammy. Capital punishment deters crime, but not waiting 20 years, 12 to 20 years for that sentence. And I understand that, yeah, there's times that there's a lot of times that they'll convict an innocent man, they'll just say, or a woman, then and convict them of murder, and they didn't do it. And then and so having the appeals process maybe allows enough time for things to show up that they'll like, oh, you know what? Yeah, that was just an overeager sheriff or district attorney who went after somebody and they want to ignore all the other facts because they wanted to get somebody for the sake of publicity. And unfortunately, a lot of people have been punished for that very reason. It was for the sake of publicity that they would readily throw somebody in jail in order to get that little collar, another niche in their belt, and which is wrong. If what would happen if people are actually just righteous and it's not about the publicity, providing a resume by which at some future point in time that you run for office and you say, well, look at all these different people that I got convicted and therefore I'm the best person for the job. Well, that would be wrong, and it is wrong. But that's where a lot of people are, and you think, well, they did these evil things to get to build their resume so they can get in the office, and look who's in office now. How many people got into office because of, and you think, man, how can we ever trust them? No wonder there's such criminals that are in office, or at least we view them that way. How can you trust a politician? You know, I, you, so all right, okay, don't get on that soapbox. Okay, in the 25th Jubilee, Noah took himself a woman, and her name was Emzara. So Noah married Emzara, the daughter of Rachael, the daughter of his father's brother, in the first year, in the 5th week, and in the 3rd year thereof, she bore him Shem. Shem was first. In the 5th year thereof, she bore him Ham, and in the first year of the 6th week, she bore him Japheth. Well, there you go. There you go. Okay, so we see that Shem is the oldest, and therefore it would be right for him to receive the from Noah. He would be receiving even how, as it's been said, it's been told, that Nimrod took the cloak that belonged to Adam because of there's like some supernatural anointing that was upon it, and that was what Esau went after, and got it and stole it from Nimrod and killed Nimrod for it, right? And that's why he went to his brother Jacob and says, my life is worthless because I just did this horrible deed, and so just give it to me because I'll just give it my birthright because what use is it to me if I'm dead? So yeah, so that would be why Shem would have had that royal garment, the garment that was made of skin that was made for Adam by Yahweh in the garden. Very interesting, and nice little nuggets in this chapter this week. And I hope you've enjoyed it. We're really at the end of time. Just some interesting connections, and we also learned Noah's wife's name, Imzara. We don't have that in the scripture, but we have it here. It's silent in the scriptures, and it's for good reason. But here, kind of fill in the blanks. All right. Well, it's been fun. It's been fun with you guys. Thank you for bearing with me with the camera issues earlier. But we'll be back next week, y'all willing. And y'all have a blessed week. Join us on Shabbat. And until next time, this is John Craig for Walking in Spirit of Truth. Shalom.
If you missed today's show or want to watch it again or want to tell someone where they can watch this episode, go to lambnetwork.tv where you will find this show and all the other live Lamb show archives in the on-demand section of the website. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to tell someone about the Messianic Lamb Network. We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussions, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the lambnetwork.tv website. I'm Sandi Craig, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network. Thank you.